All right, a little vellum experiment here. This is a pre-recorded video here because I'm going to have to go outside and spray mount these two pieces together. 4x6 print of a clouds, and you can download these on my Flickr account under the clouds album. Print them out for free on your home inkjet printer. I just have a bunch printed out at Costco here, and I have a lot of different cloud photographs. You can take them yourself too, and that would make it even more, I don't know, kind of personal in terms of your creations. And I have a piece of 4x6 vellum here. It is the, I'm using the Canson 55-pound vellum here, and I don't know, it just happened to be the one that I had. I didn't choose it for this purpose. It just, I don't know. It's the one that I had, and it's worked from all of my vellum purposes here. Let's go with the Mystic Hills here, left. But here's the thing about the vellum. Here's what's really fun. I like to create some depth in all of my scenes, and vellum is a translucent surface here, okay? So we can stamp on the front and back of it. So being that I'm stamping on the back of it as well to create a more distant looking impression, I'm just going to use the one stamp here, okay? At least on top of my vellum. And then I might use, I'm going to use some mountains stamped onto this cloudy surface for my background. Okay, so if you haven't seen this before, hope you enjoy this process here. I'm going to use a StazOn black here. You have to test out your different inks on your vellum to see what's going to dry and adhere to it. I'm not sure if every vellum is created equal. I don't think it is, but test it out on a small piece. You know, you might have to use the StazOn dye-based inks might work on yours. I'm not sure. A Brilliance pigment ink, black might work. I'm not sure if like a VersaFine Clair, like an oil-based pigment ink, will work on your vellum or not. But like I said, you know, just do a little experiment and see. All right, so this is on the front of the vellum, right? And that should dry pretty fast. I don't think I'll need to heat set or anything like that, but solvent inks can pretty much dry on just about everything. I don't know about everything, you know. Sometimes people say, hey, you know, their StazOn ink didn't dry on something, and I'm really surprised. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the front. This is what it looks like on the back here. So it looks a little bit more translucent and gray. If you look at it from the front side, it's a little bit darker. So this is what I'm going for with this use of the vellum. You can use both sides. I really like it with my birch trees, you know, and whiting out the back side of it. That's really fun. But we'll see how this goes. Okay, now I'm stamping this up a little bit higher so that it looks farther off in the distance, and I won't do a completely kind of mirrored impression in terms of the usage of design. I'm using kind of a smaller portion of it for this side, just, you know, so it doesn't look so mirrored or something like that. So see this right here? See, most of it's kind of, well, I don't know about most, but like half of it's kind of stamped off on the side there. I do ink up more than I think I'm going to use because I just don't want to, you know, kind of have it under inked and to be missing part of the impression. Okay, so that's on the back side, right? You can have this one on the front and that one on the back. I don't know. Lower tends to be a little bit darker though. So see, that's a little bit darker and that's a little bit lighter like that. And you can see how this is going to look over our cloud right back there. See now that works out pretty cool. All right, so we're going to do some coloring on this too, but let's hold for that. I'm taking a look here. So, okay, now see if we had some dark, cloudy contrast in here, okay? Really light clouds and dark background, blues or whatever going through this, then I might have to take and white out some of that right there so that it blocks out whatever's going to be in the background. But this photograph works just fine without doing that, you know, because this is still in the white, and I can color this in, and that color will show. All right. So let's see here. Let's go on with some of my new Mystic Mountain imagery. Okay. And we'll use some other imagery. I'm just kind of winging it here and playing it by ear, seeing how things are looking. Okay. And let's have some of these mountains right back in here, I think. So what it looks like stamped out on this surface here is not the way it's necessarily going to look when I use that vellum over the top of it. So keep that in mind. All right. All right. Getting my bearings here. There's a small and large version of this mountain. I don't know if I'll be using both or one or whatever. Let's stamp it out and take a look on here. Okay, now this one right here I can use just your regular dye-based ink. You can just go on if there's StazOn. If you're using a StazOn pad, just keep that out, and you can stamp your StazOn on top of there. The one thing though, if you do use a water-based, you know, just standard dye-based ink on here, then if I want to, I can color it with you know, alcohol pen, and it won't smear or put back into solution my impression. Okay, if you use a solvent ink, you can't really, you know, color that really too gracefully, at least, with your alcohol types of pens. All right, I'm going to mask off a little bit of this below here, like about like so. I'll have it a little bit jagged like that. Just to make it look like these mountains are coming out of the clouds. Okay, now it does kind of taper off on the bottom, so I don't know if I really need that mask or not, but let's see how it goes. All right, so see those mountains kind of rising from the clouds like that. And let's see what it's going to look. Let's get our bearings a little bit. See how that's going to look in here. See those clouds? Look how distant they look from putting this over the top of it. Now this area down here, I think I'm going to add in another mountain down in this area right in here. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can do it directly onto this, or you can stamp it on the back of your vellum. So see, it gives you really a lot of options when you're using this type of transparent, translucent type of material in terms of your options, okay? It's a little bit confusing at first, you know, if I don't do this for a while, it's like thinking, let me see, what layer do I put? Because you're kind of dealing with two pieces of material, but you're really thinking about two layers because on the vellum it's front and back. All right, so here's another mountain. I'm going to put this one a little bit lower, like about like here, just so it looks a little bit closer to us, okay? And again, that one's just stamped in my dye-based ink. And I'll wait for that to dry a little bit. And while that's drying, let's see, I think I can go in and add some different colors in here, okay? Let's add some different tones onto these mountains. Here, oh, actually, that's the back. See, like I said, it does get a little confusing. Okay, so this is the way it's going to go. Near, a little bit farther, farther away, and farthest, like that. Okay, I can almost put another mountain in here if I want to, but let's just leave that open. Or if I wanted to, I can have another one of these mountains right back in here for another layer of depth, and that might be kind of cool. But let's leave it like that for now. And let's add some tone onto here. So let's see. Let's get rid of this because it's hard to see what I'm coloring through this translucent material right here. So this is all my scratch paper. I have these things printed on the back when I was doing some sizing tests for the release of these images. All right, so let's add in some tone here. Let's add in some, how about some browns and I don't know, some blues, grays maybe for these hills. Okay. I'll do a little bit of blending and mixing here. Now for this image over here, I could color it on the back side, and the colors will look a little bit more muted, again, because we are looking at them through the translucency of the vellum. And on this one too, you can color it on the front and back if you want to. If you want to go for a little bit extra depth. Do something like that there. See, that looks a little bit different like that. Sorry about that. Writing on the back there. But let's see. Kind of this body of water. I like to put some greens down there in the hillsides. Maybe it's some springtime colors or something like that. Or, you know, it could just be real kind of damp and everything's kind of mossy covered. Now, let's go in here and add a little bit of extra tone with and shading with a black colored pencil. There's no set formula for, you know, coloring. And you can color whatever you want, whatever color scheme you want to go with. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Now, let's add in, how about some blue tones or something like this down in my water area. Let's see, let me get my bearings here. Let me add this back up in here and see how these are going to look. Like that, against that. See that? I mean, this really comes together very, very quickly in this technique. I spend a lot of time on certain techniques, but I certainly do appreciate a quick and easy technique. I mean, I'm always going for simplicity. In terms of my applications, I'm not necessarily looking for short, you know, fast applications of my stamps, but in order to achieve a certain look, you know, as long as I get the look that I'm going after, you know, for me, the faster the better, right? As long as you can get, you know, the look that you're going after. All right, adding in this base. I'm adding in some shadows at the base of my mystic hills here. I'm going to use the back of this vellum too. I'm adding some of this blue on the front. I'll add in some on the back. I don't know, it just comes out a little bit lighter. Sometimes you can start on the back of it too and then see if you like it. And if you don't like it so much, it doesn't really show through as much. So, see right there? It's just kind of a light shade like that. Just kind of start off, you know, with our horizon. Well, not the horizon, but the shoreline, I should say. All right, this is the back of the vellum. So I'm going a little bit heavier handed. Yeah, I haven't done this for a while, so I'm getting used to it, you know, of how this type of thing looks here. Vellum, colored pencils on vellum. It's a pretty nice process. Things tend to blend very nicely on it, I find, you know, as far as the colored pencils go. Or, you know, if you're doing some dye-based ink coloring, whatever types of colors, they tend to blend very nicely on vellum, I find. Okay. This is a little bit of a darker blue, so I'm kind of anchoring down this image a little bit more. And let's go to the black here. Okay. Okay. Let's go for a little bit of a stronger vignette here. And what I mean by that, I usually go a little bit darker on the left and right corners. I'll add some foreground into here too, but I haven't decided what I want to use for that yet. Okay, so it'll look something like this. You can see this. It kind of anchored down our imagery into the scene by adding that little bit of shading in there. And of course, the imagery is a little bit more, there's a little bit more body to it now. With the coloring shading. Okay, let's see if this is dry yet. I don't think this is quite dry on here, so I'm going to heat dry this a little bit. Be careful if you heat dry with the, the photo paper. You don't want it to curl too much. Starting to curl on me. It'll flatten out with the, the spray adhesive too and whatnot. And I'll format this card. All right, let's see. I don't know if that's completely dry. I'll see if I can color it a little bit without everything kind of completely smearing on me. Let's see how it goes. Here's a couple greens and a little bit of a brown. Kind of similar tones that I've added to my vellum down there. Yeah, that brown's a little bit dark here. Let's go with something like this. Here's a little bit of a kind of an olive tone too. I'm just kind of winging it here, okay? I don't have like a set color scheme, of how these mountains should look. Maybe I should reference some photos of some ink paintings. All right, the ink seems reasonably dry. Maybe it was dry. Your dye based inks dry pretty quickly on photo paper. It absorbs into the emulsion coating, I think. There's a little bit of green. Okay. Remember, this isn't how it's going to look through the vellum, so just keep that in mind, okay? So if it looks a little bit extreme, well, I mean, you can pull back a little bit or whatever, a lot if you want to, but keep in mind that the vellum does cut down a lot of the intensity and value of the colors that you're applying because you're putting this translucent, kind of foggy layer right over the top of it, okay? So in other words, if you want some of these colors or images to stand out a little bit more, then make them a little bit darker than probably what you would do if this were to be, your end card, that you're looking at. But again, like I said, this is going to be put over the top of it. So see how it cuts everything down like that by putting that over like so. Okay, let's go for a little bit of blue here. Just because there's so much, there's blue in the sky here as well, so I like to bring in some of that tone onto my areas that are, that's reflecting that light. It's not a blue light or anything like that, but yeah, you just get a little bit more continuity this way. Okay, so that is that. Some easy coloring right there, a little bit of blending, when you color onto the emulsion coating with your alcohol pens, you can really move that color around. You can probably even remove a lot of that color if you don't like it with your blender pen or something like that, just going right into it. All right, let's get my bearings, because we're going to be overlapping this. We have to kind of take a look and see what it's going to look like, So, constantly put this right over the top to see what you're looking at and what you're dealing with. All right, so here's some clouds in here. I don't know if this is going to work on here. Colored pencils on photo paper. Yeah, it's not going to. Well, that adheres a little bit to. It's adhering to my alcohol that I've laid down. But it's not really adhering to just the direct paper. Just nothing applies. But it looks like you can stain a little bit of your alcohol ink applications, which I don't know, that surprises me. I guess there's more tooth to the alcohol ink than there is with just bare glossy photo paper here. See that I kind of added on a little bit more shadow work in those areas. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a little bit more cloudy kind of transitions in here using some cotton ball and some white pigment ink. All right. These mountains did transition into these clouds pretty well, okay, but I want them to transition a little bit more gracefully, so I'm making the base of those mountains a little bit lighter. So I'm adding this down right at the base where light of the cloud, photo, meets darker, okay, of the mountain impressions. I'm not covering them all up, okay, I'm just kind of creating a little bit more transitioning right there. It's actually going to run very blobby. Let me see if I can show you. Can you kind of see it on there, where I've applied that white? Remember, the white is going to be, the whole thing is going to be sealed off in between the foreground here. Or, I don't know, the top layer, I guess, the whole foreground and everything. But look at that right there. Isn't that fun? Okay, so here's a couple things. I'm going to spray seal this, or spray, not spray seal, but spray mount this, and I just use just any type of spray sealant. This is a 3M Super 77 multi-purpose adhesive, okay? Now, here's the thing. We could think about putting the spray sealant, here's the front, here's the back, on the back of this, or on the front of this, and then just adhere it down, right? But on this, it's flimsy, so if I spray seal it, this is really going to curl on me, okay? And the sealant dries pretty fast. Not super fast, I'm going to have time to, apply it, but this is stiffer. Okay, so this is going to be a better idea in which to add my spray sealant over the top of, come in here, and then take this and adhere it right over the top. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video and go outside because you shouldn't spray inside and you would never spray around your work area, the mist of this stickiness would get over everything, okay? So always spray seal outside and, where you have a lot of ventilation too. Okay, this has been coated with that spray sealant. Maybe you can see that little texturing on there. It's kind of weird, spray sealing the front of a card. Normally you're, spray sealant, applying sealant to adhesive to the back of a card to mount it or something like this, but this is using vellum and this is the technique. Okay, just try to get this as straight on here as you can. All right, got a little peekaboo area that's showing up there, but I'll just retrim this, okay? And just try to get this on as evenly as you can right here. Sometimes you get an air bubble if it's a larger piece. All right, I got a little bit of hangover on here, so I'm going to trim this down a little bit when I'm doing my final pieces. And you sometimes, where the spray adhesive goes a little bit, you get little droppy areas. Just kind of expect that going into it, Don't expect just absolute, you know, spray adhesive perfection. I'm going for that, but I don't get it oftentimes, you know. It's a little bit textured in here. Sometimes there's a big drop or something like that, but I just try to eradicate it a little bit with, you know, some additional colored pencils or something like that over the top of it. Okay, so let's see. Let's add in some extra elements in here. All right. So we have some good depth in here, I think, you know, working in here. I think that looks farther back in the distance. It's weird to think that that's been stamped on the back side of the vellum, right? And then here we have this cloud photograph of these mountains in the background. This has been the thing that, this is the only thing that's stamped on the front of the card. Some of the colors in here that have been added on the back and front of the vellum. You know, that's not really a technique thing that I'm, you know, incorporating here. I don't know. I just thought about doing that, you know, testing it out here. A lot of this is still testing for me. In terms of different techniques on things like vellum. Haven't been doing it for years and years or anything like that. And when I don't do it for a while, I kind of forget, you know, some of the little details that maybe I, you know, figured out at one point in time with one of the cards I made. I don't know. Okay. So let's see. I have my little fishing boat imagery in here that I think I might want to add into the scene to add a little bit of a kind of a visual focal point. Let's see, which one do I want to use? Okay, both of these are going that way. This one's a little bit smaller here. I'll use this one right here. Make sure that's nice and straight. Okay, I'm going to do this one with this stays on in here, okay? As far as the surface goes, I don't find stamping on vellum to be too different from, I don't know, something like a, you know, stamping on a cardstock. You know, stamping on things like foils are quite different. But anyways, here's this little fishing boat here. I think there's kind of a, I don't know, kind of a calm Zen-like quality to this imagery. All right, so I'm taking a look up here. I'm doing a little assessment right here. I want to add in some extra kind of cloudy mist right here in the foreground to bring some of this cloudy mist from the background into the foreground. And we'll do that with some more of the pigment ink like this. But let's add in, I think, some more foreground. So here's what I'm thinking in terms of a technique. Do I add that mist here right now and then add in some additional little foreground imagery in here to keep that crisp? And I think that's the answer. Or I can add the foreground imagery in here and kind of hit it with a little bit where some of that mist goes on top of the foreground too. I mean, you can do both, but let's go in and add in a little bit of cloudy textures in here, okay? All right. Now, never go in here when you're doing this type of kind of more delicate additions. You want to think about using this wet ink, white ink. You want it to be more of like a powdery type of application. And what I mean by that is you want it to be kind of a dry brushing application. Okay, so see this? I'm tapping down and it's just starting to show barely. Okay. Now, if you don't see anything, don't get kind of too impatient. Go, okay, like that. And then you get these big blobs like that, okay? So just kind of lightly dab down like this, and maybe if it takes 20 taps to get what you want, that's what you want because you have a lot of control over it. It makes it a real easy style of application, okay? It's user-friendly, okay? It's, you know, but 20 taps, it's not like, hey, it's going to take a really long time to do. It takes a few seconds, you know? So let's start adding it down at the base right here. So watch this right here. I'm adding some of this little misty kind of cloudy texture. And it changes the spirit of this impression here. We got kind of a multi-value impression instead of having it all, you know, uniform, kind of darker gray. It's like an 80% gray or something like that on Vellum, you know. Black ink on Vellum, it stamps out lighter, even if it's on the front of the Vellum here. But see that real misty type of quality like that? Isn't that fun? And I'll just add it, you know, around at the base of this. I'll add it a little bit heavier in some areas, and see this right here, I'll leave it as is. So you kind of oscillate things a little bit. You have some here, none over here, so that it kind of stands out. It's opposed to blocking this all out and kind of eradicating, you know, what makes the Vellum special and having multi-tones. Okay, so back here in the distance, see this tree is already lighter than this one right here because it's on the back of the Vellum, remember? So I'll add this down like so. And let's make this, you know, really emphasize kind of the distance between these two. So see that right? A little bit of white on there. And we'll add it around here a little bit. So see, this one is getting pushed farther back in the distance like that. But look how easy a technique this is, you know? You don't have to get everything right with the impressions. You know, in terms of values of them, okay? You have a little bit, you can lighten them up later on, like this. All right, now see this right in here, I added, remember that white at the base of those mountains. I'm going to add a little bit of white on the front of the Vellum now, at the base of the mountains. You know, to create a little bit more kind of depth within the cloud. I don't know, I guess cloud depth, I guess we can call it. It's a little bit more subtle. And let's see here, we have our little fishing boat here. Let's go ahead and color this a little bit. I'll add a little bit of brown to it. And why don't we put that little fishing boat in a little bit of mist as well? Let me adjust my... There we go. Adjusting my camera exposure here a little bit. Sorry if it was too dark there for a while. Oops, that's a little bit too much white. So I just kind of blotted this off, and I'm going back in here again and just blending that out a little bit more. So doesn't that kind of relate to these areas a little bit more so now with that mist and fog? Mist for the mystic line of imagery. I really love these this photo stamping with this mystic line. Oh, this is the second time I've used it. Now the first time I've used it in a Vellum setting here, but look how kind of distant and deep these areas look in here. Okay, so let's see. There's this tree here. That's a little bit too big. I don't want to obscure too much up there. But I might have some of these trees here in the foreground, like this. Or we can just go with our reeds or something like that. Oh, here's something that I have right here too, is I have my bamboo branch right here. That might look kind of cool. I don't think I want to have anything coming over the top of those mountains in the background. I think those look pretty cool. Let's just go with my tried and true reeds right here in the foreground. Give it a little bit of added depth. Okay, this will put us, it puts us kind of on the shore looking into this terrain, you know, us as a viewer I'm talking about. And I'm going with the stays on here because I am stamping right over the top of, well, first of all, I want it to look very close and dark. Plus, I'm stamping over some of the colored pencil there, so, you know, maybe the color stays on would be a better choice to stamp over that type of wax. All right, let's see. I think this would be, let's see, I need to trim this down. See, this area right here is sticking out a little bit right here. I think I'm going to trim this, and then we'll format this into a card. We'll give it a little bit of mounting and border, but I might put a word stamp up here. That blue is a little bit too dark as is in the photograph, but having it muted like that with the vellum, I think it's light enough for like a black impression, like a one single word stamp or something like that. So we'll pause here and come back and finish this card off. All right, I am back. My typical little mounting here, just with a little bit of a white border around there, and using the never-ending ream of dark, glossy blue, almost black. I would just get the black these days, but my blue, this glossy blue here, was on clearance probably about 30 years ago, and I picked that up, and I just haven't used it for too much over the years, so I've been using it to mount my scenes, but kind of, you know, those black lacquer frames, you know, what those look like. I don't know, I think that gives it that type of look here on our cards. Okay, so I'm going to stamp this word stamp up here, just says silence, okay? I think that, I don't know, it adds kind of a nice little element in here when we add words. I haven't done a lot of that over the years. I do have the scenic sentiment stamps, you know, where I've used it on the interior of cards and whatnot. And a lot of times it is on the, you know, the front side of a card too, but I haven't used it enough, I should say. As the, you know, the combination of you know, words or copy and imagery, you know, makes such a nice combination. And for these scenes too, these mystic stamps, I just think that it really, I don't know, it adds even more to the pieces like that. It just seems like it finishes them off really nicely with a word stamp. And I have a lot of quote stamps and things like that too that would go perfectly with this type of imagery here. So here we have it. Let's see, we're at 37 minutes here. I don't think that's too bad. You know, we're talking about 3 layers of images on here. So we have the imagery stamped out on the photograph. Okay, now so all those clouds in here, that really just gives us a nice head start in terms of an entire backdrop for these images here. If someone just looked at this right here, I don't think they would know that there's a layer of vellum over the top of it. It just looks like, you know, everything is pretty seamless on here in terms of the merger. But here we have this little technique right here. And here's, you know, one way that you can use one stamp, you know, for both sides of the, I don't know, whatever inlet right here, water inlet right here, but this is right here, just stamped a little bit higher up, but on the back side of the vellum. And then here, this is on, you know, the photograph, so that looks like it's even farther back in the distance, you know, enhanced a little bit with some, the pigment ink right in this area right here. And, you know, that type of blue looks a little bit more muted with the use of the vellum over the top of it. You know, it knocks out like half of the value, I would say, and half of the intensity. So that silence right there really stands out really nicely against it. And then, you know, for the, you know, the foreground imagery, or for the imagery that are closest to us, you know, represent, you know, as far as, you know, what it represents in terms of distance, this image right here is just stamped in the front side of the vellum, along with the foreground imagery and the reeds and that little boater. I added, you know, a decent amount of pigment ink to that white pigment ink, so that image could almost be stamped on the back side. Okay, so if I wanted that to be pointed this way and going in this way, you can stamp it on the back side of the vellum, right? And it would be pointed that other direction. So anyways, here, you know, vellum is really fun to use, and a lot of people have it too. in their supplies I've found, So when I started doing this front backside vellum type of technique, a lot of people said, "Hey, I got that vellum in in their their supplies or some vellum, and I don't know, they haven't used it for a while. They didn't know you could stamp on it, and didn't think about stamping it on the front and back like that. It's just a really fun technique, and it can really push kind of the ability in terms of your inks, in terms of creating depth in your scenes. These are all in black, but they're all in variations of gray, depending on where they are within the layering structure here. But I don't know, it's just a fun little technique. I would suggest, though, if you're going to use vellum and do some layered cards, doesn't have to be landscape stamping either or something like that. You can do all kinds of things with it. I would suggest the spray adhesive. It just makes it so much easier to get a nice even coating of adhesion between that piece of vellum and whatever you're mounting it on, okay? So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this card. Hope you liked the end result. Let's get rid of this right here. And take a look here. Don't go out of focus, please. It's starting to struggle here. That's as close as I can get, I think. But fun with vellum. Another little experiment here using the new line of Stampscapes Imagery. And I like what I see so far with all of the different kind of experiments and whatnot. Drop me a note if you have any comments. Please like and subscribe. And thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.